So this is the beginning of the intro movie for Jack 3, and in the intro movie, obviously, it's important to establish the setting, the wasteland. It's important to establish the characters, and also important to bring everyone who hasn't played Jack 1 and Jack 2 up to speed with the story. So as we're seeing the ship rocket across the wasteland here, when I was animating this, there were actually no trees, no cactuses, no big rocks for my reference. So when they put them in the game, I was relieved when my ship wasn't actually passing through any of it. Now this guy Viger, he's one of the new characters. He's the main villain of the piece. And what's interesting about Viger is we're always trying to refine the work that we do, and we did his facial animation system slightly differently than we've done in the past, and it actually worked out very well so that all the new characters in this game use the new facial animation system. So let's see, we got our favorite feathered friend Pecker coming in here, the half monkey, half bird character, and dropping in right behind him a second later is Daxter, who's always trying to upstage him. One of the things we tried to play up in this game that we had a lot of fun with in Jack 2 is the rivalry between Pecker and Daxter, you know, the two cute animal mascots, and so we really sort of pushed that in this game. We got Ashlyn Shashing with her sexy walk right up there, and you're about to see something that looks very simple, Ashlyn putting something into Jack's hand and sliding her fingers off, but in fact doing moves like that, passing things back and forth between characters, takes a while. That little thing there took me a couple of hours. Now, as the ship flies away and leaves a big dust cloud in its wake and dissipates to reveal Daxter and Pecker, one of the interesting things is the effects animations, such as fire and smoke and dust, is all done later by our effects animators. What we do is we simply place a little node in the scene to say, here, put a dust cloud here, or put a flaming ball of fire here, and they all take care of that much later on. So we don't actually get to see it until it's in the game. And here they all are walking into the desert.
This scene is a really good example of just the collaborative process at Naughty Dog. So many people had their pieces in the puzzle to make this whole scene come together. Jason Martinson was the animator. Also, Mike Fadalun did a lot of the special effects animation, which you're going to see in a few seconds. In addition to that, of course, we had Troy Adam doing all kinds of, as you can see, all the special effects with the particles in the background, sort of adding life to the whole battle that's going on. What we wanted to do when we started the story idea for Jack 3 was we wanted to really kind of show the players that played Jack 2 that the world's going to really change. And so right off the bat we said, well, you know, that palace is just going to have to come down because we want to basically show that Haven City is forever altered in this war. And again, this is showing sort of the cross-section of how these scenes were put together. This scene took forever. We really shot a lot of our special effects load early on this one. As you can see, the entire palace comes down in one big giant piece, and that animation took forever. Again, a number of people working on this to make all the pieces come together, and then the magic of the music and sound effects on top of it to sell it.
This is one of the first scenes I animated. It's your introduction to the Wastelanders, the King, Damus, and Cleaver. Little known fact, if you get the secret orbs, you can turn off Cleaver's cloth, and you get to see his hairy legs and his skid marks.
I smell a storm coming.
You sure that's a storm you smell, Damus?
All right, so this is our first time back after the intro movie, and we get to see Jack and Dax are nice and safe. We also see there's been a wardrobe change, and Jack's gotten a haircut, so hopefully his little hand gesture gets to draw attention to that. When I first started working on this, the stage was not really done at all. They were, in the process of working on that. I did know there were steps, and I knew there were pools of water. So, two things I thought of were bringing Damus down the steps and get them closer together, and also get Daxter to wring out his tail so I can get just a secondary action in the scene. I also didn't really know what was going on with Damus. Is he good? Is he bad? Should we be worried about him? I knew that, Dan, our writer, probably knew exactly where he was going, but I knew that I didn't, and also the viewer didn't. So we got to, kind of leave a little mystery for Damus. And he talks pretty tough, so I know that after this scene, I didn't quite know if I liked him or not. But, then I also get to have Daxter act cute.
What happened to the ones that don't crawl?
Maybe that balances out the scene with all the tough talk.
I was afraid of that.
Hail, all citizens!
This is a scene showing the battle arena for the first time. The Wastelanders, as you know, are basically, they live out in this desert, the Wasteland cities, named Spargus, and it's out in the middle of this giant desert. And these guys are pretty tough hombres, and they use this arena kind of as a proving ground for themselves to see who the strongest are. And so the survival of the fittest idea is basically what their whole creed is. Basically, Jack and Daxter show up at this place not having any idea what they're going to do, and all of a sudden they realize they're going to be tested in fighting. So once again, they have to prove themselves if they're going to even stay in Spargus, and prove themselves to be Wastelanders. The arena illustrates sort of the contrast between Haven City and the Wasteland, where out here, basically Jack and Daxter are in significantly more peril. They're fighting for their lives and fighting to prove that they're worthy to stay in Spargus, the Wasteland City itself. Again, really what this is also is for the player is that it's the beginning of a series of adventures and challenges, both training them and also easing them into the game.
Hi, this scene was a lot of fun. Any scene that has Daxter and Pecker going at it like this is a lot of fun to animate. They're both really fun characters to do. What's interesting is this scene didn't have the gun in it originally. It just had Damus yelling at Jack, but it was decided that he needed to get the gun somewhere in this scene, so we had to squeeze it in there somewhere, and so the toss ensued.
You mean you have to fight against actual people?
Daxter grabs his face at this point, and that was an incredible pain to do, so I hope you all appreciate that.
Right, that's it. I want to be on his shoulder.
This is the scene where Damus realizes that Jack is a little bit more than he seems. Speaking of which, one thing about this scene is that everybody who animated scenes in the arena ended up having to reposition everything because about halfway into production, they ended up rotating the arena by 90 degrees. It doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it's a lot of fun.
And that could be useful.
Now, what's interesting about this scene is we have a lot of scenes in this game where the characters are basically doing a lot of explaining and a lot of sort of expository dialogue. So the trick in the scenes like this is rather than just cutting back and forth to a lot of talking heads, is to try to keep the camera dynamic with interesting angles on the scenes so you all don't get bored and button out of the cutscenes. Because, you know, we don't like it when you button out of the cutscenes. Once again, Daxter gets burned. Animating Daxter is very fun. Animating the little flaps on his hat is not quite as much fun. This scene is the introduction to the Precursor Monk scene. She was a really challenging character to animate because, unlike all the other characters in our game, she's very subtle in her motions for the most part, especially with her voice. She's actually voiced by Tara Strong, who does a lot of work for cartoons and video games. Did a really nice job with her. One of the interesting things about this scene is that I animated it well before the final version of Jack for Jack 3 was designed. So I was actually using the old Jack model, the model from Jack 2, and when we changed the character design, we actually changed some of his proportions a little bit. So I ended up having to come back to this scene later and reanimate Jack's chest and some of Daxter's positions on his body armor because everything had shifted around slightly. I know it doesn't sound like much, but little things like that add up to a lot. Now coming up here is a little homage I did to one of my favorite actors. I'll leave it up to you to guess who it is. And now, time for a minigame.
This scene is one of the first times you actually see sort of something alluding to something bigger happening, where this dark satellite is here, and Seam is talking about how it's communicating with something even bigger. Again, we're just trying to foreshadow where this is heading, the story. One of the things that's interesting about creating these animations is, you write these lines, and then an actor will take them and bring them to life at one level in the recording studio, and we go in and we direct the actors, and it's a lot of fun because the words just kind of spring to life. And then an animator gets a hold of it, and it's just amazing because they really breathe life into the character, and suddenly everything just all comes together, and it just becomes a living, breathing thing. It's quite an exciting thing to watch, really, from the beginning of script and text all the way to the end, when you see these characters actually feel like they're your friends, and you start to really know them, and they seem to feel like they really have energy and life behind the eyes. And then when you add sound and music, suddenly the whole scene becomes much greater than the sum of the parts. It's amazing.
Well, if it isn't the newbies.
All right, so this was my first scene. I got to use Cleaver, and We have a bunch of new characters in this game, and as the games have progressed, the characters get new controls and little animation controls for us to use. And at this point, they were getting really easy and gave us a lot more power. So Cleaver had all these extra controls, so I got to have fun with him. His facial and mustache, and he's even got a little jiggle on his belly. But here's another character we don't really know much about, if we should trust. The Wastelanders seem to be kind of shady, so I had to kind of try to play him that way. And since he also references putting Daxter on a barbecue and having him for a snack, I knew that was not a friendly thing to do. But yeah, he's a fun character.
This scene ran into a slight problem that we have a lot, where there's important information going on that the player must learn about, and there's other humorous antics going on in the background, and we have to balance the sound out, which sometimes can be disappointing to the animator, but it needs to be done for the gameplay. This is a fun scene to do. I got to abuse Daxter, fling him around. I love doing that. And here he comes again. On his way back, he'll be hammering away at the lizard, trying to get out of its mouth. And Baruch Baruch, some mumbo jumbo, which means spit out little orange lightning.